NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show, our Minnesota preview edition of the Rutgers Rant. If you're a loyal listener, you might have noticed last week, for the first time, we invited a guest on to help us pick the games. And we had Gio Rashino came on to pick the Iowa game. And the reviews, Brian, I don't know if you heard the same thing. The reviews were just fantastic for Gio. To the fact that people were like, that's going to be, how are you going to follow that up? I don't know if you got that sentiment from folks.
I had the same sentiment myself.
Yes. Well, we followed that up. We are very excited to say we've got Katherine Tappen coming on the show. Our show, Brian. Katherine Tappen.
That's right. She should be hosting the show.
Taking time out from a schedule that is very busy. She's at Penn State, Oregon this week. She's doing events for the Ryder Cup. And between all that, NBC broadcaster, Notre Dame reporter, many hats she wears. She's going to be on the Rutgers Rant. I'm as surprised as I'm sure all of you are.
Should be fun. I mean, to go from Gio Rashino, a local favorite, to a national reporter. And it's always good to remind folks that there's a graduate of the Rutgers School of Communication. They don't just produce schmucks like me. They also produce national sideline reporters. So it's going to be fun to chat with her. And I'm wondering how often her email is bombarded from Steve Miller, because mine and my Facebook feed are full of his, anyone need a job? Here's 30 of them.
My question to you is, in the pantheon of Rutgers journalism graduates, where would Katherine Tappen rank? Is she in your starting five?
Yeah, I would think she's in the Mount Rushmore. I can't think of many other people that would go above that. And if there are, shame on me for not knowing the history of the school I graduated from. But it's hard to top a sideline reporter for NBC games of Notre Dame, one of the biggest brands in college football, a sideline reporter going to all these big-time Big Ten games. She has a pretty impressive resume that a lot of us would love to live up to one day, right? So big shoes for us to fill as future graduates. So very, very proud to share a degree with her.
Give me that Mount Rushmore. It's Tappen, Lanny. Who is in the Mount Rushmore of journalism graduates from Rutgers?
Fonseca, Alec Krauthamel, who covers the team for On 3. I think Tom Lucci graduated from Rutgers.
Tom Lucci would be in this. He could be in the Mount Rushmore. Absolutely. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Jerry Eisenberg did not.
Graduated from Rutgers Newark. Are you gonna claim him? That'd be like a Carolina grad claiming someone from UNC Greensboro. I'm not sure we could pull that off, but I guess you could.
He graduated from Rutgers. I don't even know if he graduated from the School of Communications, but he graduated from Rutgers. That's all that matters.
I'd put him up there. Put him on your Mount Rushmore. Absolutely. That's good. All right. Katherine Tappen, we'll be back later on to talk to her, pick the Minnesota game. Let's talk about the Minnesota game first here. Obviously, we know the stakes here for Rutgers. We know the stakes. They need this victory to get back on the track to get to bowl game. This is a road game, a challenge for them after losing to Iowa. It's not just that, though. There's a homecoming for the Kaliakmanis family. Athan, who wouldn't bite on questions about that, of course. It seems like they hate the narrative. I feel bad for him. They have to answer that. But here he is. He's going to get out of the way. He's going to play back against the team in the stadium. The coach who kind of cast him aside. But not just Athan. I mean, Dino Kaliakmanis is going. And I loved your story today about him. Just like a completely different journey for that kid.
Right. So Athan and Dino were these brothers that are 17 months apart, joined at the hip growing up, spending all this time together. And they're at the same place now at Rutgers, fifth-year seniors, making impacts, but in different ways. And that kind of mirrors the way they grew up, right? Athan has always been, Athan is the younger one. People are always surprised to hear that. But he's always been the one that has it easy. He's 6'4". He's always been the star quarterback. He's outgoing and social, and he's always front and center. Whereas Dino you meet him and you always think he's kind of quiet. Well, that's because he grew up with central auditory processing disorder, which makes it harder for you to kind of understand what people are saying to you and takes you a little longer to process. The comparison I heard was essentially, when you're in a crowded room, you're in a nightclub or you're in a really loud place and you can barely understand what someone is saying to you. It's like that all the time. So one can understand how that makes it much more difficult.
Yeah,
He
as a
didn't
football
speak.
player, especially, right? I mean, yeah.
Absolutely. And he spoke 6 words in his first 6 years of life.
Wow.
And the most popular one was ball, because all they did was go outside and play ball. They threw the football around, played basketball, dove into the ball pit they had in their basement. And that's really how Athan and Dino connected, was through sports, and that's how they communicate growing up. And Dino obviously has done a lot of work to overcome it, and he's at a much better point now than when he was a kid. He had to go do a lot of speech pathologists, and he had a specialized educational program in high school and in college, but he's at a much better place now, and he's making an impact. He had a special teams play in the opener against Ohio that probably went, no one's going to really remember that play, but to him, it was just a really big moment in that he's here, he earned his spot on this team, he's making a contribution. And for Athan, obviously, having seen everything his brother went through to get to that moment was really special for him. So, and now they're going back to Minnesota, where their journey in college started together, right? Like Dino, his father told me that he probably could have gone to Air Force or gone to another place where he would have played more, but he wanted to go to Minnesota to be with his brother. They spent 3 years there. Now they're coming to Rutgers, and they're playing them again for 2 years in a row. It's amazing how the schedule gods work in our favor here, give us this storyline 2 years in a row. To your point on Athan, I even asked him this question because I was curious. Is this a game that you're looking forward to, one of those circle on your calendar, or is this a game you're looking forward to just getting over with so people stop asking you about playing Minnesota? Because I'm sure it gets so tiring to answer the same question all the time.
Yeah, it was great. And at Las Vegas, at Media Day, and this is, believe me, I've been there. I know what this guy was doing. He was a reporter from Minnesota. He was just trying to justify the cost of the trip to Vegas, the dinner he was going to have later that night. And he shuffled up to the table, and I was standing there, and he just was asking, some variation of the same question to Athan about going back to Minnesota. And I thought Athan was going to reach over and kill him. And to watch it unfold, just kind of, feel uncomfortable for both people involved. I can understand why he doesn't want to talk about it. I mean, it was, a couple of years ago, he felt like he probably feels like he put a bow on that last year, right? You beat them in Piscataway. You had the nice moment on the field with your family. Greg gave him the big hug. There were some emotions there that day. Have to go back there now again. I guess it's different in the stadium. I don't know what kind of reception he will get. I can't imagine, and no reason for fans to boo him except that he plays for Rutgers. But yeah, I mean, that is just another wrinkle to a lot of them, because you're forgetting that the PJ Fleck, the Kirk Shiraka, the Rob Smith, they're the tentacles of these two programs with Greg Schiano are really tied tightly.
I think it would have been better for Athan and Dino if this was reversed, if they played at Minnesota last year, because this is just an elevation of last year where you get the win, you get all that cathartic stuff, but now you have to go to a place where I think he will get booed because he's playing at Rutgers now what Minnesota always hoped he would be for them. And I think that really is a frustration for fans there. So it'll be interesting to see how they react and how Athan obviously deals with that. To your point, fascinating that in 2017 and 2018, PJ Fleck had the exact same coordinators, Kirk Shiraka and Rob Smith, on his staff. So I'm wondering how he feels about both of that. If I'm sitting on the outside, I'm dreading that I have to go against the Kirk Shiraka offense, and I'm kind of licking my chops that I'm going against the Rob Smith defense based on it's looked like so far. But yeah, this program is mirrored in the way they look at the game, right? Like Greg Schiano is very much a do not lose this game rather than a go out and win the game, as we talked about ad nauseum at the end of the first half against Iowa. PJ Fleck is very much the same way. Run the football, don't turn it over, row the boat, yada yada. It's a mirror image with different verbiage. So this will be the game of least resistance, right? Which team is going to not mess up enough to win the game?
Yeah. I mean, everything about that program up there is Rutgers North. I mean, PJ Fleck, essentially carbon copy of Greg Schiano, did it better than Kyle Flood did. I guess, the same sort of, hokey stuff, the same family, the same, that whole way of approaching it. To his credit, when he's been down here, even when things weren't great early on, he's spoken very highly of Greg Schiano. I don't know what the relationship's like now, but certainly it's there's a lot of respect there, I think, for what Greg has done, for his impact on PJ throughout his career. All that's put aside now because Minnesota's got to win this game too, or their season could go into the proverbial, what.
Yeah. They had a setback at Cal. They were up 14-10 right at the entrance of the fourth quarter. They gave up a 17-0 run, and then they lost to Cal. And then Cal was like, whoa, there could be this year's Indiana. Just run through the ACC. And then they drop an absolute egg and lose 34-0 to San Diego State. which now has you questioning how bad of a loss is that for Minnesota, right? So yeah, this is certainly a big game for Minnesota. I think the PJ Fleck Schiano thing is akin to like a little brother, big brother, where I really do think they have a lot of respect and love for each other, but they really don't want to lose to each other, right? So I think that adds to that. But yeah, this game for Rutgers is huge because if they lose this game, you're essentially in must-win territory at Washington, which is a harder game than this one. And for Minnesota, if you lose this game, not that this is one of the more winnable games on the schedule, but you're going to have harder games moving forward, and you're going to have a lot of pressure to do that coming off of 2 losses. And they're coming off a bye week, so they have the rest advantage. Feels like a big spot for them. Yeah, a big game early on in Big Ten play.
All right, what can you tell us about Minnesota?
So they're probably down their top 2 running backs based on what I can gather. PJ Fleck is very Schiano-esque in the sense that he will tell you nothing about injuries. He pointed to the availability report just like Schiano. And running is the strength of their team. Drake Lindsey, their quarterback, isn't exactly lighting up the world, and they love to run the ball, as I said. So if they're down 2 guys, that's not particularly great. They don't turn the ball over, which, again, is very Schiano-esque, but they don't really force the issue on offense. They're not an explosive offense. This is not even with Rutgers' defensive struggles. I know we said this about Iowa. They can rack up points against this Rutgers defense. Right. I don't see that with Minnesota. I really don't think this is a game where they're going to come in and just, or I guess, receive Rutgers and just score a bunch of points. So I think this is a game where Rutgers' offense really has to do what they didn't do against Iowa and just pack on the points and really build a big lead, because this Minnesota team is not built to come back.
Right. And I wonder if there's a lesson in that game for Greg Schiano. If there'll be a switch thrown here where it's going to be a more aggressive, more attacking, more, there's no number on the scoreboard that's going to be enough for him. I think it's a better matchup for Rutgers than Iowa. Like, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, this is a program Rutgers has beaten before, competed with. It's not the same level of defense, the same physical defense that has given Rutgers trouble in the Big Ten historically. I don't know. I was surprised. Were you surprised to see the line? I saw Minnesota -5.5. Is that still the number? Yeah, I was very surprised by that.
Yes, I was. Yeah, I think Rutgers is a better version of Minnesota, right? Like, I think they're very close as far as the way they construct their teams and play football. I think Rutgers is just better. So I was surprised at that. The only thing that could explain it is the home field advantage, and Rutgers' first home game, the rest advantage, yada yada. I just think Rutgers is a better team. So I was surprised at that, and I think the advanced numbers that look at, predict these games, take a bunch of factors into factor in a bunch of numbers. Sorry, Jesus Christ. The point being, they have Rutgers as favorites. So there's a big difference between what Vegas sees and what the analytics see. So that'll be interesting to see who wins that battle. But yeah, I would be closer to thinking Rutgers wins this game by a lot than Minnesota wins by a lot, if that makes sense. So the one factor here is that Minnesota has this guy, Coy Parrish, who's essentially Travis Hunter in that he offensively, defensively, special teams, he's on the field in pretty much every snap. Obviously, Rutgers, the first kickoff of the game against Iowa, had the air come out of the balloon. You can't let him. He had a rough special teams game against Cal, but you can't let him get going because he's the one X factor who can blow everything up in all 3 phases of the game.
There's a possible narrative here that Iowa game was just a everything goes wrong kind of situation. Like, you're not going to see that again from the special teams. I don't believe you're going to see that again when you miss 2 easy field goals, you get 1 blocked, you have a touchdown returned against you. It's not characteristic of Rutgers. I don't think. I mean, again, like a fluky kind of interception where Athan gets hit and kind of throws the game away at the end. You're up by 4 points. You have a defensive holding penalty. I guess that one of all the things that happened was the least surprising because the defense has struggled, and a lot of that whole entire game was one big assault in the secondary on both sides. So I shouldn't be surprised by that. But still, you would think that this might be a situation where, okay, Rutgers clean some of this stuff up, can go on the road, play just a complete game and win.
Yeah, they're not going to give up 13 points on special teams again. I would be very surprised to see that. And yeah, it can't be as bad as it was against Iowa in that sense. Absolutely. And I just think Iowa was a better team than Minnesota. And I think that part of that will factor into the decision-making where, not that Rutgers was scared of Iowa. I don't want to say that, but I do think they respected Iowa a lot, which is why they didn't throw the ball at the end of the first half, because you respect the fact that Iowa can make a play like that. I'm not sure they have the same level of fear with Minnesota. So I think that factors not only into similar situations, but in every aspect of the game. They'll play more free, quote unquote. And you're not playing at home in that atmosphere. I don't know if that makes a huge factor, but as much as it could help to play in front of 3 million people on TV, a packed stadium Friday night, it could hurt a little bit too for guys that aren't quite experienced in that atmosphere. Maybe playing on the road, this team plays better in a hostile environment, us versus them mentality. We'll see. But I think all of those factors play in Rutgers' favor.
All right, we'll get back and we will make predictions for that game with Katherine Tappen later in the show on the Rutgers Mount Rushmore School of Communications. Tappen, Eisenberg, Fonseca, carving it right up there. You're like the Teddy Roosevelt on that Mount Rushmore. Which one are you?
Is Teddy Roosevelt on Mount Rushmore? Is that true? I'm serious. Is that true? It's Lincoln, Washington, right?
Yeah, go on.
There's two other ones, right?
Yeah, see if you can finish it. Come on.
I should know this, but like,
yeah, you think you should know this? Yeah,
Roosevelt.
I think there's a okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop embarrassing myself further because we're gonna talk about a different president. We're gonna talk about President Tate.
Oh, look at that transition.
How about that? Well, people will think it was planned, but it was not. My ignorance is a full display here. I'm trying to get out of the way. You sat down with President Tate before the Iowa game, and he talked a big game. I mean, you read these quotes, and the guy is confident as can be, and he's letting it all out there.
Yeah, no, it was something. It was fun. Yeah, I had tried to set it up a long time ago, and they came to me and said, "How about before the Iowa game?" It was really the perfect time to talk to him because I think he was just kind of fired up by the atmosphere. He had a lot of stuff going on. He's wearing his black number 22 jersey. He's kind of a wiry guy. And as first we sit down, he was kind of, I was a little surprised. He was very subdued. He was telling stories about, trying to talk about the culture of winning to a math professor at Rutgers, and his point was being that. You can win in everything. It's not just, you're not just winning on the athletic field. You want to win when you're a cancer doctor. You want to win when you put up a proof on the blackboard as a math professor. You want to win in every possible scenario. And then he just, I just fed him a couple questions that weren't exactly fastballs about how you can win as what can you do as a president to encourage that? And he just said, he was very clear and very forceful about it. Like, he's got to bring the culture of winning here. People at Rutgers do not understand what it means to win. Normalize winning was his big thing. And I wonder if that's going to, do you think it's going to ruffle some feathers, people? I mean, there was a kind of a sense like, you guys don't know what you're doing. Here I am to save the day. I don't know if that's going to bother people or not.
It might, but what are they going to point to the infinite list of results they've had in the past 30 years to counteract? They can't. Like, he's right? Like, it's when you think of Rutgers athletics, one word you don't think of is win. So I would hope that, if I'm a Rutgers fan listening to him talk, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear someone who has the boldness to say, yeah, let's try to win games, win trophies, win championships. So I would be encouraged when I read that. I guess the natural question is obviously, well, Bill, how are you going to do that?
Right. Yeah. And that was tough. And it really does, trying to drill down on how he's going to make the impact. And it just seemed like his answer was simple. He says, like, it's all about corporate dollars. It's all about reaching out to people and convincing them that this is a good place to invest in talent and getting them to see that. He's right, of course, but I don't know. I mean, it's certainly not the first person to think, hey, maybe we should ask Johnson & Johnson for some money. Like, let's see if it works. Let's see if they can make the connection with people that hasn't been done. I mean, it's easier at LSU. Like, and his point was the opposite, which is funny. Like, look, we're a little town in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and we had XYZ. We had all these athletes, and we showed people when you have Jaden Daniels on your side. When you have Angel Reese, we show people the impact of having them and getting them early and sponsoring them before they become stars, and the impact you can have on your brand and their brand. And it was a compelling case, but it's just like, again, like, it's a different place. And it'll be interesting to see if he can make that impact on Rutgers. The one thing I will say, and it is a fascinating, transformation for the university in the time I've been here, and to go from, Robert Barchi, who, not only was not a salesman for athletics, basically saw it as an imposition on his time. No other better way to put it. Someone handed him a tape and said, "You've got to watch this. Your basketball coach is crazy. He's throwing balls at and yelling anti-gay slurs at players. You've got to look at this." And he didn't watch it. Right. Like that's to me is like the most broad way you can explain what he was like athletics. Then you go to Jonathan Holloway, who is into it in the sense like, look, we've got to invest in this. We've got to spend money, but kind of a hands-off, all right, we're going to put it over here. We're going to let Pat Hobbs do his thing. We're going to watch from afar. We're not going to listen to people who are losing their, what's about what's happening. Just kind of like a distant figure in the whole thing. And now you've got someone whose hands is in the kitchen. Like he wants, he's cooking. He's in there with Kelly Zinn. He's going to be he's going to be involved. Like this is one of his, if not the biggest priority, it's certainly in the top 3 for things that he was brought here to do. I don't know how that changes things. It's going to be very interesting to see. Like, what does it mean to have the top guy at the university? What can he do on the level to improve things in the big picture? How many what level of resources is he willing to give from the university? There's a lot of questions about that, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does.
No doubt. To your point, you go from a guy who is completely indifferent about athletics, to apathetic, to a guy who sees it as a necessary evil, to now a guy who embraces it, right? So as you make those incremental progress in the outlook, will that lead to incremental progress in the results? That is to be seen, but you can't do it unless you try. And he might be the first guy that tries at that high level. To his point, Baton Rouge might be a small town. It's a national brand that's on national television every week. It's won national championships. People know what LSU is. There are people out there that don't know what Rutgers is, right? Yeah. So, but again, if you don't try to get these corporate partnerships, then you can't get them. It's one thing to understand the challenge, but his predecessors didn't even try. Right. So if he doesn't fail, again, it won't be for lack of trying. So yes, it's an easy solution to diagnose. It's a very hard problem to fix. He talks a big game. He will try. And I think one of the more freeing things was his last quote to you, where it's like, what are they going to do? Fire me? This is my last job. I think that is valuable. I really do. Because it keeps you from the hesitation that when you're a career guy, you're in your mid 40s and you're thinking, I don't want to screw this opportunity up. He's thinking, let me leave my legacy. And I think he has a chance of doing so. I mean, I drank the Kool-Aid. We'll know for real in a year or two's time, but I liked what I read.
Right. Yeah. There were 3 things in there that quote, of course, is one of them. I asked him about and I asked him in a gentle way about the process to hire Kelly Zinn. It was just sort of like, so you were very, because he sung her praises, understandably so. And you were felt very strongly about Kelly Zinn. Obviously you stepped into a situation when you inherited a search in progress that was going in a different direction. Just curious how difficult that was. And I forget exactly how he worded the question, but his answer was just so great. He just leaned back and goes, "That's one for the book." And I'm like, the book, oh, can you take that a little further, Dr. Tate? And he said, "It's the book from Brownsville to the Big Ten, my life as president of blank university. And the chapter's going to be how to hire a Big Ten athletic director." And I about fell off my chair laughing, again, like, and it was a cute, not exactly a shot directly at Amy Towers and the turnkey firm and that whole process, but certainly across the bow. The fact he's willing to say it, the fact he doesn't have a filter, he doesn't give a what, he's just sort of like, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I had to come in here. I saw what was going on. It was a big bloody mess. I took it over. Look who I hired. That's it. And I don't think anyone who has been around Kelly Zinn thinks like, well, man, what is this guy thinking? No, I mean, he seemed to have made a really good hire. Yeah, so that sticks out. The other thing is that his answer on Greg Schiano, which was a question I didn't ask, which it's dumb. I should have asked. I obviously should ask the question, but he volunteered it, which was very, by the way, per capita, you've got the best football coach in the country. And I thought it was fascinating, and not like it's, unusual for a university president to praise the football coach. But it was some pretty high praise, and a high praise with an excuse, like a built-in, if you don't win, here's the obvious reason: we're not supporting him enough. I don't know if that's backing him into a corner, if things go sideways here or not. What do you think?
No, look, I think he has access to NIL numbers that we don't publicly, right? So I don't think he would throw that out there without the knowledge of it being true,
Yep.
where Rutgers ranks among his peers in NIL. I think if you look at an equal case across the Big Ten in Indiana, which was in a similar place to Rutgers, 10 years ago, and now they're one of the best programs in the country, right? That didn't happen because Curt Cignetti is Nick Saban reincarnated. He is a great coach, but he certainly received a lot more help in NIL and support from the university and its rich alums than Greg Schiano has. I think that's, again, we don't have the numbers to have a complete comparison. Are we talking 4 million to 8 million? Are we talking 4 million to 16 million? It's impossible to know. And those are numbers I throw out just to make a comparison's sake, to be clear. But I think it is pretty clear that Rutgers is certainly in the bottom quarter at the very, and that's being generous, of the Big Ten in NIL revenue, right? And so I understand his sentiment there. I don't think that's going to make people feel better when they lose a game to Iowa, but it certainly explains why something like that happens, why Rutgers hasn't broken through, and it shows the main thing they have to fix for Rutgers to break through. I think that does go back to corporate partners, and I think it does go back to tapping the rich alums, because they can get good support from lower level donors all they want. But Indiana didn't turn around because of 100,000 Hoosiers. It turned around because of 5 or 6 big whales.
Yep.
I know we've said this for decades. You got to go find the whales.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, certainly when they play Oregon, it's going to be pretty clear. Ohio State's going to be pretty clear. One team's got a payroll that dwarfs the other team. I don't know what Iowa's NIL payroll was, but I did watch the game, and there was not a difference in talent, right? Like there was not a noticeable measure like, oh wow, Iowa's so much better. They weren't. Like Rutgers had the better quarterback. Rutgers had the three better receivers, right? Like if you can go through it, I don't know. I mean, Rutgers had the better running back. We could tick it off. It just wasn't an NIL loss. And it's games like that I think frustrate the fans, where you're like, okay, you can scream for resources. And I get it. It's going to be real against places like Ohio State and Penn State and the big ones, but that wasn't the case here. So
that's fair. Iowa had a much better line on both sides of the wall, which I think
better offensive line than Rutgers.
Offensive line and defensive line, yes, I think so.
Okay, better defensive line certainly, but the offensive line played pretty well. But okay, you can give it to them.
One could make an argument there. I think the other thing, and I know I'm going to slightly counteract the point I just made, but when you look at the stadium on Friday and the amount of yellow there, I don't care if it's a lot of Iowa alums that live in New York or whatever. There were a lot of visiting fans there, and the Rutgers fans that travel, I respect them immensely. There are not a lot of them, right? So I think that speaks to the size of the fan base. A lot of these Big Ten schools have enormous fan bases. So, well, yes, the whales are the ones that make the hugest difference. The difference in size of the pool of small donors also makes a difference. And when you have people that are traveling from Iowa City to Piscataway in droves, that shows something.
And we should say that was a big fat number rating wise for that game. Like it was 3 million. I mean, it was one of the biggest, most watched games. I think it was the top 5 or top 6. You're going to be seeing some college football in Piscataway on Friday nights going forward. I think that's pretty clear after that one. So,
yeah, again, it works because it's national television. It was Fox. It was a primetime game, and there was nothing else on. Mm-hmm. That is obviously a major factor, because if you look at the last regular season game that had that many viewers, it was against Ohio State in 2023, which was on CBS. It was the Big Ten game on CBS.
Right.
So that's a national brand and a open air game. So that makes a factor. Still, 3 million for a regular season game at Rutgers is a lot of people. I was shocked to see the bowl game numbers, which were also 3 million. But again, that's gambler's paradise and a standalone game, and people are just dying to get their last gasp of college football. So I get it. I would agree with you that I would not be surprised if every opening Big Ten game at Rutgers is a Friday night game from here on out. I see nothing but positives outside of the result from what happened on Friday.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to take a break, come back. Katherine, you didn't comment. You didn't even notice that I'm wearing a collared shirt today for Katherine Tappen. I don't want her to think we're not a classy podcast.
And yet here I am wearing an orange shirt looking like a pumpkin for the fall.
Maybe get changed during the break. I'm not. It's fine. You'll be okay. It's too late now. She did ask, I will say, she said, after agreeing to do it, she's like, hey, where do I find your podcast so I can listen to a few episodes? I'm like, oh no. And she's going to listen to it, and then we're going to lose our guest. We're going to send her a different podcast. send her Dan Wetzel's. You're on Dan Wetzel's podcast? Like, oh, you didn't know? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Be great.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Well, she hasn't canceled yet. As of this morning, she has not canceled yet. So let's hope we didn't say anything too stupid for her to say to back out.
She won't cancel on us. In fact, we're going to be back in a few seconds with Katherine Tappen. Hang on. All right, and welcome back to the rant. We are joined by Katherine Tappen, NBC Sports, Rutgers All-American, Academic All-American, steeplechaser. I think that's, can we start with steeplechasing? Because it's one thing, like I'm going to run 3,000 meters, but I also want to jump over a puddle. Like how does, I saw that in your bio, like how does someone get started in that event of all things in track and field?
For those of us crazy people, but no, first off, thanks for having me, guys. Great to be with you on the podcast today. But yeah, actually, I have to give credit to my track and field coach, Roberta Anthes, who is one of the best, legendary at Rutgers. But she basically, I came out of high school with a really extensive distance and hurdling background. So I ran the 100 and the 400 in high school. And as soon as you get to college, they bump you up. And actually steeplechase had just been introduced. This is how long ago I was at Rutgers. No, it had just been introduced to women's track and field my sophomore season. So Roberta took a handful of us, some of us who were better hurdlers than distance runners, some of us who were a hybrid of both. And it just so happened that I excelled at it, but it is no fun. I can tell you that. It's a grind. And also it happens in the spring. So, you go all fall running cross country and indoor track, and then all of a sudden you get to the spring and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a very challenging endurance race. You got to jump over hurdles. You have the one water pit for 7 laps. And of course, everyone hovers around the water pit because they want to see you get your feet wet. And, then I'd pack up my cleats and get on the bus for the long bus rides home, sometimes from Virginia or, UVA or West Virginia, wherever we were running track. And it's like my bag was the smelly one because my sneakers and cleats were all wet. So but honestly, I am fascinated when I watch it at the Olympics. I love watching women compete in that event. It is grueling and it's a true testament to endurance. Yeah.
So obviously the entirety of running track in college must be a very grueling experience, early mornings, all that hard stuff. Do you still run? Do you still find today, do you still run and find pleasure in it?
I do. I love running. I think it just is a part of me. And I do an Orange Theory class most days of the week. So that has like 30 minutes of running, sometimes 50 minutes of running. I live in a really nice rural area now where there's tons of trails and a lot of hills. I'm right near where I grew up in New Jersey. So it's really nice to be able to kind of train out there. And then honestly, the benefit of running, I pack a pair of sneakers and some gym clothes, and I can go on the road for a 3-week Stanley Cup final. I can go on the road for the Olympics for 3 weeks and find places to run. And, you start to learn cities really well. You learn areas really well. I think it's just such a great way to not only stay in shape, but to see places. So, but there's a lot more walking involved now than there was, back in my college days. And, I don't put so much pressure on myself anymore. Even me running a turkey trot, I'm so competitive and I just want to beat everybody because that's, what I'm trained to do as a track athlete. But, so I've gotten better at just kind of relaxing when I go out on a run.
I'm picturing you spiking the football after you cross the finish line in front of some grandmother in the turkey trot.
Yeah. I run with my cousins a lot on the turkey trot. It's been a couple of years, but when we would do it, it's like, we'd all line up on the starting line together and everyone's like, okay, so we're all going to do this together. Right. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this together. And then as soon as that gun goes off, I'm like, see you guys, I can't hold back in the pack. I got to go chase the leaders. It's just what we were trained to do.
I wonder now you're back. When you go back to Rutgers now, what is it like as a former athlete for you to kind of see the transformation of that place compared to when you were there? What sticks out most for you, the differences?
Remarkable. I mean, the facilities alone are amazing. And I had the opportunity to go back, I think it was 2 seasons ago, maybe. And I think 2 or 3 and during a football weekend and, they honored, maybe it was last year, actually, I've got the patch on this sweatshirt, the Title IX, the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So they brought back all female athletes, which was so much fun. And we walked on the field at halftime of the football game. It was a Friday night football game. So I was able to do that and fly quickly to my game for NBC on Saturday. But, I'm just amazed at there's always been school spirit, but now more so than ever with the boardwalk walk, down towards the football stadium, all the activities that are going on. The fields are amazing. The new soccer and lacrosse facility that was not there when I was there. And then the basketball facility over on Livingston campus. So it's just, I'm amazed by that. And I think it's awesome because that is what these athletes deserve. And listen, Rutgers, I'm sorry, the state has the money. You can fund the athletic program. There's plenty to go around for everybody, academics and athletics. And I just think it's really awesome to see. And then it's just fun. I just love, my old, not old age wise, but my former, athletic administrators like Randy Lawson and Kate Hickey, who I know just left Rutgers. But, I love seeing them and reminiscing, and it's just fun. It's just crazy to think that I have so much pride for this school, and it's been a while, but I love it. I love going back.
Speaking of people from back in the day, you, as a fellow Sky alum, I spent a lot of time with Steve Miller. I'm wondering if you spent time with Steve Miller and how impactful he's been for you.
Oh gosh, Steve. Yes, of course. I spent a ton of time with Steve when I was at Rutgers. He was very instrumental in helping guide me towards what I wanted to do. I knew when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a sportscaster. So I went into Rutgers and the School of Communications knowing exactly, but then of course it's how do you get there? And once you do it, is that really something you want to do? But Steve's been great. I stayed in touch with Steve to this day. So Steve, actually, I spoke at one of his classes not this past spring, but the spring before. So in 2024. And a young woman came up to me after class, Tori Jonak, and she was like, hey, if you ever need any help, I love football. I write for SI.com for the Giants. She writes on an NIL blog for college. And, she really impressed me. And at the time, I didn't have a spot for her in my sideline role. We had that position filled by a former Rutgers lacrosse player, Ellie Rigner. So I tend to pull from Steve's classes and bring people on board. But Ellie then worked the Olympics with me last year, and Ellie ended up getting a different job this fall. So when I heard that, I was like, you know what? Let me circle back with Steve, sent him an email. I said, hey, remember Tori who came up to me after class? Any chance you know where she is these days? And, can I grab her email from you? And he was like, that's an amazing idea. She's still here. She's getting her master's. So Tori now is on the sideline with me this season for Big Ten football, and she's killing it. She's doing a great job, great growth every week. So I stay in touch with Steve. I like to know who in the program is interested in what I'm doing. If there's any way I can help, I'm very involved in the athletic program and giving back to the athletes. I'm on a networking site, so they can reach out to me at any point in time, pick my brain about things. I usually will schedule a Zoom time with them. But I think that's incredibly important. This is a really hard business to get into. And if you can have a mentor just kind of listening to your concerns and your wanting advice and anything they can grab onto, I'm happy to provide that resource for them, because it's hard. It's hard to get your foot in the door, but once you do, there's so many opportunities that open up. So yeah, Steve's great. I can't believe he's still there. God bless him, but we all love Steve Miller.
You mentioned breaking into the business, and I read your story about how you got in, and I think people don't understand just how difficult it is. Could you tell us that about the tryout with 100 other people there at CSTV?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to go back a little bit because it started with, I was in a class my junior year in the journalism school, and Tim Pernetti, who was a former, we all know Tim, but Tim at the time, the former Rutgers standout football player, he was an executive at ABC Sports, and he came to speak to my small journalism class. And he had, back in the day when you had business cards, not like V cards or whatever we do now, but he put a stack of his business cards on the table, and he said, if anybody wants to stay in touch with me. So I grabbed a card. And again, this is midway through my junior year. And I just said, hey, and I emailed him right away. I said, I was in your class. I'd love to know, stay in touch. This is what I want to do. And that summer, he helped guide me to an internship at ABC Sports in New York City. So that was junior year going into senior year. So then Tim left ABC Sports and ended up going to CSTV, which is now CBS College Sports. And CSTV was a launch-up college sports network. A bunch of the former executives that created ESPN Classic created CSTV. And so I graduated my senior year, and Tim reached out to me and said, hey, we're having this walk-on tryout competition. It's a 2-day event. It's going to be a plethora of 150 people from all over the country. Some are baristas at Starbucks. Some are meteorologists in the middle of nowhere that want to be a sportscaster. And, we're going to have 4 celebrity sportscaster judges. It was Gus Johnson, Bonnie Bernstein, Brian Baldinger, and why am I missing the fourth one? Oh my gosh. Sid Rosenberg. Did I say Sid yet? Okay. So anyway, 4 celebrity sportscaster judges, and it was a 2-day kind of boot camp. You wrote stories, you were under deadlines, you went on camera. And at the end of those 2 days, I won the audition. And I kind of just launched, it put me ahead at that point in time for what I wanted to do, but it was still spotty work. It was like once every couple of weeks, come on in and read us the Friday night update for the sportscast or whatever it might be. But I was able to start building a really nice resume reel with these beautiful studios in New York City, and then send that out to various local news stations that I had already kind of reached out to looking for jobs. So again, it started with the Rutgers connection. It was a class I was in. It was a former athlete that came in to speak to us, Tim Pernetti, and lo and behold, it opened up a massive door to me and for me. And Tim, to this day, is like my number one mentor in the business. So he always gets the call first when I need to make a big decision about something.
It's a good mentor to have. I will say you and Tim are setting an incredibly high bar. I've spoken in Steve Miller's class and I have not gotten anyone a job yet. So I gotta figure out how I can get on Steve Miller's good side.
I love it. I love it.
But you've taken the opportunity. Now I saw you posted on Instagram. You've done 60 Notre Dame games, which is incredible. You're a staple of one of the biggest brands in college football, obviously. I'm curious, two things. One, you've been to South Bend, I imagine, dozens and dozens of times. Do you have a routine when you get there? Do you have a spot that you always go to? And as a follow-up, I'm hoping you can take these two at the same time. Do you have a good Doug Flutie story? Because I know you worked with him for some time.
Oh, I got 2 minutes. How much time do we have for the Doug Flutie stories? Yeah, Doug is a dear friend. I love him to death. I call him Peter Pan, as he won't grow up. Doug, literally, we would be in production meetings on Fridays, and he would get it. He'd be itching to get out. Like he always has to be busy and do something. So he would leave our production meeting on Fridays, and we would tend to go to the TV trucks or maybe check out our equipment on the field. And Doug would go play pickup hoops at the rec center at Notre Dame with college students. I mean, can you imagine the look on these guys' faces? Like, I think that's Doug Flutie that's playing pickup hoops with us. I mean, just awesome. And that was his routine. He had to do it. He had to get his energy out. He wanted to be around the kids. Like, he loves surfboarding, and he's friends with all the lifeguards. He plays in what's it called? Like a baseball league down where he lives in Melbourne Beach, Florida. And I love him. I mean, when you walk through an airport with Doug Flutie, it's like the worst thing in the world because you get stopped every 5 seconds. So you better make sure you make your flight, but it's also the best thing in the world because he is truly an American treasure. I mean, he did what everybody in America wants to do, and he did it undersized and all the things stacked up against him. And it's just awesome. So yeah, those are like 2 good Doug stories. But getting back to Notre Dame, I mean, NBC has had the package for a long, long time. I did exclusive Notre Dame games for 10 seasons before I shifted over to the Big Ten. So luckily, we still get 3 games a year because we do our Big Ten crew does the primetime games for Notre Dame football on NBC. So I was back there last weekend, 2 weekends ago. And when I was flying over the stadium, I'm like, I wonder how many times I've done a game in this stadium. And I went back and counted, and I talked to our research team, and they were like, yeah, your number's right. So, and it's just amazing. It is a special place. And, I grew up in an Irish Catholic town in New Jersey. People either went to Notre Dame, wanted to go to Notre Dame, or they hated Notre Dame. So it was like a love-hate. I've seen it since I was a kid. But going there is truly special. It is a beautiful campus. It's rich with tradition. I like to call that stadium a cathedral of college football. It's spectacular. You've got Touchdown Jesus in the background. I always make a point. I always go to the grotto. I like to light a candle or 2 or 3 or 5, depending on how many needs I have that day, that week. But I love lighting a candle at the grotto. We take a nice long walk on Saturday mornings before our production meeting at 9 a.m. So we leave the hotel probably around 6:45, 7 a.m. and just walk the campus, It's a good 5-mile walk. We just kind of, breathe in the air. It's so beautiful out there. I always sleep my best in South Bend because it's like quiet and the quality is great, that Midwest air. So, but the people are great. Like the ushers in the stadium, they've been there forever. They love their job. They love Notre Dame football. They've got great stories to share. So I've taking that property in 2014, I didn't know what I was getting into, but being a part of it for so many years, it really has become a massive part of my career.
Now, 60 Notre Dame games is impressive for someone who, as an amateur ringhead, 6 Olympics to me is even cooler. I'm just curious if you have a favorite Olympic moment that you've witnessed or that you were part of or Olympian you talked to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many. I'll be doing my 7th this year in Milan, so I'm really excited about that.
Okay.
We'll be on site, which will be great. I'll do hockey. So I always go back to my first one in 2014 as a track athlete and just an athlete. I mean, growing up, I loved watching the Olympics, loved it, and always dreamed of being an Olympian. So sadly, I was not good enough. Thankfully, my teammate Julie Cully was, and we cheered her on in London. But I always remember 2014, my first Olympics in Sochi, and there was so much uncertainty going into Russia. We didn't know what to expect. There were rumors about, what the potential political backlash would be and what might happen. So much of that conversation going on, in addition to the hype of covering your first Olympic Games. It just made it unique. The country, Sochi was a very interesting place. It was almost like a movie set. There were times that you were like, is that door going to stand? Is the door going to fall when I go through it? I mean, it was weird, but at the same time, so unique to what we were doing at the time. And I was over there with my whole broadcast team from NBC. We had a blast. You work your butt off. Like, you are working hours that you've never even believed you could do. Very early morning, we were doing 3 games a day for hockey, whether it was USA, Finland, Canada, men's, women's, you name it. I had the chance to go see a couple other events that year. So I saw a speed skating event. I saw downhill slalom skiing, I think I saw. And then just every year there's something different, right? After Sochi, it was Rio, and it was the Zika virus, and it was all this stuff, before we got to Copacabana Beach. And I did beach volleyball right in the heart of Brazil, which is incredible, on Copacabana Beach. And I stayed right across the street from my venue. So I literally looked at the volleyball stadium all day, every day for 3 weeks. So they're all very different. Tokyo 2021 ended up being, was on the tail end of our pandemic here, but they were still shut down in Japan. So, but a beautiful culture, and I got to get out and experience some cool things. So it is the opportunity of a lifetime in a sports career, I believe. I've done Super Bowls, I've done Stanley Cup final, I've done all the great events, the Open Championship in golf, but there's just something special about wearing that jersey for your country, and you feel it from all the athletes, whether they are NBA players competing. These guys have already won championships and millions of dollars, but they love putting on that USA jersey or that USA sweater. So it's a really awesome experience.
I have one last one before we get to picks, unless Steve has another one. But you've been to, you said it, Tokyo, you've been to Brazil, you've been to all these great stadiums in the Big Ten, you've been to Notre Dame. Are you, now that the NBC has the Big Ten rights, nudging your bosses to get a Rutgers primetime game on NBC, just like they got one on Fox, they got one on CBS a few years ago? When is NBC going to join the party?
Trust me, every week I'm on it. I try. We got Penn State, Oregon this weekend, so it was a little difficult to try and argue, Minnesota, Rutgers, but
come on, Penn State, Oregon. Who's going to watch that, Katherine?
Everyone knows. I bleed Scarlet, and I love my Scarlet Knights, and coaches in the Big Ten always ask, "How's your team?" I'm like, "Don't beat up on them too bad, coach. We're good this year, whatever." So, no, it's yeah. I mean, I would love to have a game back at RU, and we've actually our network, Peacock and NBC has done day games at Rutgers too. So last year, actually, there was a day game at Rutgers, and we were doing the Notre Dame Army game at Yankee Stadium at night. And I actually asked my boss, I said, "Can I go down and do the Rutgers game? And then we'll just get like a police escort to take me to Yankee Stadium after." He's like, "No." Sorry. Well, I tried to do 2 games in a day, but it didn't work.
I imagine that was a challenge though at some point, because now, Rutgers is competitive every week, but there must have been some times when you showed up at like a different stadium after 78-0 Michigan, and you're like, and having people looking at you like, "Oh,
listen, those are the highs and lows. Like, all the teams that are at the top at some point, they're not going to be at the top anymore either. So you just have to battle through it. My uncle is a Hall of Famer at Rutgers, Tom Tappen. He was on the undefeated 1961 football team at Rutgers, played both sides of the ball, and then went into the Marine Corps after he graduated. So I am a very proud Rutgers football supporter. I obviously have a lot of pride for what he accomplished as a Scarlet Knight. And I actually wear his watch on the broadcast every week. You'll see I've got a gold watch on. It's it's Hamilton. You got to wind it up every day. But it's the 1961 undefeated. They gave it to all the players on the team. And if you turn it over, it says Thomas E. Tappen embroidered on the back. So I wear that with a lot of pride. I show it to a lot of coaches in the Big Ten, and it's pretty cool. So I hope we get a primetime game soon. It'll be fun. They might take me off the sideline, so I don't know if they'll let me do it.
Right. Yes, you could. Yeah. You'd be standing with the cheerleaders if that's the case.
Yeah. Right? By the way, shout out to the dance team last week. They looked awesome in that blackout. Holy cow. With the light up uniforms. That was awesome. Loved it.
They were bringing it. The whole experience. Dance
That's
team,
awesome.
the band, like everything's like a higher level now.
Yeah, the drones, the wave to the Kinnick, the kids at Kinnick was awesome. What a great nod that Rutgers. I don't know who thought of that, but that was genius because I've been a part of that Kinnick wave, and it gets you choked up every time. And the entire stadium, all the players, it's so awesome. So to see Rutgers do that last week was truly classy.
Yep. Awesome. Everything about Friday night outside of the result, I think we all can agree was really, really well done.
Good game.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Let's get to the nitty-gritty.
Now they're going to try to bounce back from that. So,
Yeah.
Politi, take it away.
As to the result. All right. So last week we had Gio Rashino on here for Rutgers, Iowa, former quarterback. He did pick the Scarlet Knights. Going to put it to you, Rutgers, Minnesota. I think it's -5. Is it what we're going with, Brian?
Yeah. We'll go with -5. I don't like to go with even numbers, but it's the most common and it makes the most sense. So we'll go -5. If you guys pick a 5-score margin, I don't know what to tell you.
So I just have to pick the winner or the loser. That's it.
Winner, loser, and score, please. We need to know the line as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So they put up 28. I'm going with Rutgers because I think Minnesota's coming off a bye, but they're coming off a loss. And I think that they've got some question marks, with their pass defense. And I think that's where Rutgers can maybe have a little bit of an advantage. Athan Kaliakmanis is playing great. Love to see that. He's going back to his old barn. He's going to have, a lot that he's going to want to prove to them. He's going to want to beat his former team, his former coach. So I just think Ian Strong's going to have a great game. And so I'm going to go with Rutgers, and shocking. And I'm going to go with, 32-28. I think it's going to be close.
All right. Good score.
All right.
KT for the Scarlet Knights. Fonseca, you want to go next?
Sure. I can't wait, by the way, for our first guest picker to pick against the Scarlet Knights.
Eventually they're going to play Oregon and Ohio State, Katherine.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Someone's going to have to,
Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. That's tough. That's a tough slate for the Scarlet Knights.
Right.
We'll have to pick a super homer for those weeks to make sure that they keep the streak going, picking the Knights. I'll pick Rutgers. I think Rutgers is just better than Minnesota. I think that's just the truth. I'm a bit confused by the Vegas line, to be honest with you, unless there's something that none of us know about. I just think Rutgers is better. I think they might play better on the road after, kind of difficult loss at home. These are the same teams as we said earlier on the podcast, and I think Rutgers is just a better version of this team. I think Athan has a big game and kind of shushes the crowd that's going to be booing him, obviously him coming back home. And I think Rutgers offense keeps it going and their defense has a bit of a bounce back. So I'll go Rutgers. I'll go a little bit less high scoring than last week. I'll go Rutgers 24, Minnesota 17.
Yeah. At the rate the two of us are picking Rutgers, we're eventually going to have the Scarlet Knight. Like, can they send us some gear too?
That's right.
Yeah, Rutgers too. This is the second trip. Yeah, I think I picked them all 5 weeks. But yeah, I think they're going to win too. I do. I thought they were going to win last week. I think they're better offensively. I think they'll clean up the mistakes, the uncharacteristic stuff that happened last week. That cost them that game essentially. A touchdown on special teams, 2 missed field goals. I don't think that's going to be the routine for this team. I think they're better than that in those areas. I think they've got the best player in the field again in Ian Strong. He tried to rip that game from single-handedly from Iowa. He's just an incredible player. Athan will be motivated. The offense will be, they know this team really well. They beat them last year. So I'm going to go 35-31.
Oh, nice. I like it.
I think
it's a good opportunity to clean it up, right? Forget the loss to Iowa. You've got Washington coming up. You're going to host Oregon. That's going to be tough, but Purdue is beatable. Illinois, I think they can go toe to toe with them. I mean, these are the games in the schedule. They're going to have to really get some wins under their belt.
So get to a bowl game. So Steve and I could be in Detroit the day after Christmas.
Nice.
You should join us, Katherine. It'll be a great time.
I have an NFL game on the 27th, and I'm not sure where yet. But if it's in Detroit, I will come to the game on the 26th.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe we'll get the line
in the Marriott Hotel bar. It'll be beautiful.
Okay, perfect.
I'm sorry you have to suffer through Penn State, Oregon, while the rest of us are at the true game of the week here in Minneapolis. I'm sure you'll find a way through, though. You'll make it. Yeah.
I'll survive. I will survive. I'll do my best.
All right. We can't thank you enough for doing this, Katherine. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And your stories were great. And good luck the rest of the way. We'll see you down the road.
Thank you, guys. Keep up the great work yourselves. Good to be with you.
Thanks.